Now we're going to go through the parabola key features. So like we talked about, the graph of a quadratic relation, so quadratic, is called a parabola. So these things are parabolas, and they can either open up or they can open down. So let's take a look at these key pieces of information. So the zeros, or x-intercepts, are where the graph crosses the x-axis. So it's going to be the dots on either side of these, right? The points on either side. They can also be called x-intercepts or roots. So the vertex, is the highest point if the graph is pointing down, so it'll be the point up here, or the lowest point if the graph is pointing up. And the axis of symmetry is the vertical line that divides the parabola into two equal halves, so it'll go straight down the center. It is the x value of the vertex. And then we have our maximum or minimum value. So it is, again, either the highest point up here if the graph is pointing down, or the lowest point if the graph is pointing up. And it is going to be the y value of the vertex. And then the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. So it'll be when x is 0, it's going to be that point that crosses the y-axis. So let's take a look at our first one here. So our x-intercepts are where the graph crosses the x-axis. So it is going to be here and here, right? So we have the first one as 1 and 0. So when x is 1 and y is 0. And we have another one and it is 3, 0. So when x is 3 and y is 0. Our vertex is the highest point on the graph. So our vertex is right there. And that is when x is 2 and y is 1. Right, so when x is 2 and y is 1. Our axis of symmetry is the vertical line that divides the parabola into two equal halves. So it's going to go down this line because it's going to be equal on either side. And so that value is when x is 2. So we only write the x part. Our maximum is the highest point for this graph. It's going to be our highest point because it's opening down, and it's going to be the y value. So that is, y is at 1. Okay, and our y-intercept is when the graph crosses at the y-axis. So when x is 0. Right, we knew that from our other one, from our, unit before. So it crosses there. So our y-intercept is -3. So let's do the same thing with the next one. Let's grab the same colors. Our x-intercepts are here and here because they cross the graph at the x line here and here. So this is 3 and that is 1. -1. So when x is 3 and y is 0, and when x is -1 and y is 0. Our vertex is going to be our lowest point because the graph is opening up. So our lowest point is down there. So that is when x is at 1 and y is at -4. And our axis of symmetry is right down here, and that's when our x value is at 1. And our minimum is our y value. So it's going to be -4. And then our y-intercept, we're going to take a look at when it crosses the y-axis, which is at -3. Okay, so you can see that we can find all this information just by looking at our parabola graph. So you guys have this sheet too, and I'm going to go through probably 1 or 2 of these ones and 1 of these with you, and then I want you to try and fill out the rest. Again, I will post the answers up so you'll be able to see if you're correct. So we're going to first look at, sorry, let me just get this here, our very first one. So we're going to look at the coordinates of the vertex. So our coordinates of the vertex are, so it's asking for our vertex, right, which is the highest point because our parabola is opening down. So it is right there. And that is when x is 0 and y is 0. Our axis of symmetry is going straight down the center. And remember, our axis is when x equals. So x is 0. So x equals 0. Our maximum and minimum values, so that is our y. And we currently have that as a 0 as well. And then we take a look at where they cross so our x-intercepts. Does it cross the x line at all? No. So we don't have any. And it is opening down, so we're going to write down. And our y-intercept, it crosses it at 0. So our y-intercept is 0. So we'll take a look at the next one. So our vertex, again, is now it's our lowest point because it's opening up. So our vertex is right there, and that is when x is -1 and y is -4. And our axis of symmetry, so we're going to go right down the center here. Our axis of symmetry is when x is -1, and our maximum or minimum value, so because it's opening up, we're going to have a minimum value. Our minimum is -4 because this is our y value. And our zeros, so we're going to take a look at when they cross the x line. Sorry, I think that's a motorcycle outside my apartment. Crosses it there, and it crosses it there. So this is when x is 1 and x is -3. And it is opening up. And our y-intercept, so when it crosses the y line, so our y line is down here and it crosses it right there. And that is at -3. Okay, so you guys are going to do these two yourself. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at graphing these ones. So we're going to take a look at our vertex. Our vertex is going to be when x is 2 and y is -5. So we're going to go over to 2 and down to -5. So that's going to be our vertex. Our axis of symmetry is 2. So we're going to draw the line here because it's our axis of symmetry and dotted lines. And we're going to take a look at our x is at 2. So it's going to be I just blanked for a second. Sorry. Our minimum value is at -5. So we have our axis of symmetry here and our minimum value of -5. And then our zeros, let me get a different color. Our zeros are 5. So it crosses it here. We did that one. And -1, which is here. And it is pointing up. So we're going to be drawing it up like a cup. And it crosses the y-intercept. I don't know why I keep putting the caps back on, but that's okay. Our y-intercept at -3. Okay, so now we just have to draw our parabola. Again, it's not going to be pretty, but we're going to go down, cross all of the lines, cross the lines. And we've already done our first one. So you guys are gonna try 2 and 3 and then double check that you have the answers correct.